start by asking everybody to tell me about the first time they were on a factory line and something they remember from the experience.
I've been to a lot of factories in my day.
First time.
I worked on the factory floor. I was in like a training and development role. I started my career in human resources. And it was just this factory that made large scale televisions. And it was such a powerful experience. I remember talking with somebody in the assembly line. And one of the first things I'd done actually was try to work a few days on the assembly line to see what it was like, and these auto insert boards or the manual insert boards that were coming down the line, and figuring out how to do that and how stressful that was. But I remember having a conversation with one of the assembly line workers who was a former football player, an NFL player. And I because I taught a lot of team skills types of programs to the people working the line, I'd asked him on a break, I just said, how would you compare this to what you had in the NFL? And it was just such a powerful comment. He said, in the NFL, when things would go wrong on the field, and things would break down and the game was going wrong, the coaches would all come running out and they'd ask you, what's going on? What are you seeing? And they'd get all this information from you. And yeah, he was saying in places I've worked, other factories where they don't do that, it's just really, the engineers will run past you and they'll just start trying to figure out how to fix things without getting your input. It was so profound to say, that's what we really needed to replicate here at this particular factory that I was working on as we were building out this team skills program. It's just, how do you make sure you're getting input from the people closest to the product and the team to work on that? So it ended up being just a great lesson of, when you're developing teams, you really need to collect the input from each of those people who are closest to it, because they're going to know as much as your engineers and everybody. It takes everybody's insight and perspective to be able to solve that problem.
So you still apply that today?
Anytime I visit a repair line, that's, for me now, it's repair lines. And, I remember being in one in Japan recently where I was just watching how they laid out the repair process, which was very different from our other repair facilities. And you just wanted to go to the technicians and understand how are they doing this and why are they building it that way, and try to get off the tour line that the leadership team likes to put you on, and you just kind of jump off of that and start talking directly with the technicians. But that direct feedback is just so critical to really understand what those problems are and how you fix them. So,
all right.
Yeah.
I think when I was preparing, I saw that you had a pretty long career at Sony.
Yes.
Where you did a wide variety of different things.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the leap from this long career at Sony to consumer side service and
I think I've done so many different things at Sony, which is, I think, a great way to build your career. And I think it's tougher these days. A lot of people really think really vertically in their career. And for me, it was always jumping around and trying to learn different things. Product marketing, I was probably 10, 15 years of my career, and I was talking with a manager about, what do you want to do next? And I was like, well, I've never done product marketing. I don't think I'd like it, but I feel like I should. And so, I was responsible for running the Vio US business that Sony had at the time. It was a great experience. And I would argue, in a business, you really need to understand all those different teams and how they work together and what motivates them. Yeah. And so from all those experiences, I just really fell in love with the support part of it. It just resonates with me. And especially, when I came to Google, it was to set up contact centers for all of our Play supported business and eventually hardware as well. And so that was just a blast to come to a business that was just starting up its consumer electronics and be able to bring all this experience and do that for about 3 years. But then when I saw the opportunity to create repair, when we were really serious about consumer electronic devices, particularly smartphones, that's what I wanted to gravitate to again, because it just, when you're in a service role, especially repair, you are working all the way up with the marketing teams around branding, because repair is a critical part of it. You're working with the sales team on how do we engage with carrier partners, for example. You're working with the product teams, the design teams, the engineering teams. It's across the entire spectrum if you're really going to set this up effectively for your customers. So it gives you that breadth of really working up and down the spectrum of all your internal partners. And it's just a fun place to be. It's just fun to fix things.
So I grew up as a design engineer.
Nice.
I loved DFFA. I always volunteered for it. I thought it was super cool to be able to see products come back from the field, see what people engraved on the back of their iPods.
Right, exactly.
But also, like look at these units, figure out how we can improve the process. And my experience, granted, it's like a decade old and it's in a different company, but I think in general that design and like the field tend to be pretty separate.
Yeah.
And they're like, they keep the R&D folks away.
Yeah.
So I'm curious why you think that is.
Yeah.
And like, to what detriment?
Here's what I found though. If you think about product designers and engineers, I'm very musically motivated. They're your rock stars. And they're not designing in a vacuum. If you're a rock star, you're not really happy just sitting in your room strumming on a guitar. You want access to your customers. You want to play in the arena. You want to play in front of all those people. And so what I found is stepping across that boundary and talking to design teams, they want the voice of customer. And you in a post-sales support role, you've got gold for them. Because they just want to connect with people. That's why they design products in the first place.
Same reason I like DFFA.
Yes, right. You're doing this for a customer. And if you have somebody that can say, hey, this is what your customer thinks, and this is how you can make it better. I mean, that connection, it's no different than that rock star on the stage. You design, you're creating, you're wanting to connect with a customer. And again, that's why I agree that barrier is there. But as soon as you step across it, the design teams will seek you out. As long as you can bring the goods, right? You have to be able to go to them with valuable information, not opinions or anything, but just solid data of, hey, this is what we're hearing from customers and what the experience is lacking right now. So
it's building that if that doesn't exist. So how often, if you can share, like how often do you interact with the design teams at Google?
Yeah, I mean, wow, regularly. I think when you start, it is more, okay, let's have a monthly, a bi-monthly, a quarterly, whatever. And hopefully you move beyond a point where it's just, you ping somebody and just say, I saw that design change at this stage of the design process. Are we sure we're doing that? Or here's some ideas on what we could do. And so it becomes much more interactive. Yeah. And that's really what you want to get to. And I think that is how it is.
And that's the day it is today.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. It's a lot of how it is today. And it follows that. The first time we did report cards for design for serviceability with this previous company, and it was a group full of engineers. And at first they're like, hands folded. They're like, you're going to give me a report card? But by the end, again, when they see that value, by the end of it, they are taking over the process and they are scoring themselves much harder than you would even score them. And they're showing it to you and saying, give us more information how to improve these things. So I think it's an invisible line that people see, but it is truly invisible because the connection that those teams want, they will not resist you at all. And there's no negative tension from that. They really want your input.
So if there are designers out there who aren't getting this information from their field team, just reach out.
Yeah. I think that's a critical thing. It all, and again, this is from my experiences in product marketing, as what my manager said, this is all about relationships. Well, that's true of any role in any work we do. And that's really what it is for us. And it's building relationships, having a cup of coffee with a designer and engineer and just having a discussion about their product. And it's amazing how much you accomplish in just simple acts like that of just sitting down and building the relationship so that you can talk through those things. It makes it much, much easier than you think it would be.
I'm just going to check to make sure it's working. Okay, it is. What do you think? So probably no company has achieved the ideal state, but what do you think the ideal state would be between engineering, manufacturing, and the field? Wow. In terms of what is the long-term vision, holy grail state?
I think it's one of acceleration and of speed. The timelines for releasing a product, it is, but it's also so long-term. I mean, we're talking about products and we're having some really deep discussions around products that are going to release 3 years from now. And with a sense of urgency that if we don't have this discussion by the end of next month, we're going to miss it, and then it's just catch up and it's just tougher. It's just incremental as opposed to those great leaps forward. So, I think the ideal state is just how do you bend time, right? How do you really look at time travel where you're condensing that timeline and you're able to to impact each of these products along the way and not miss those windows. That alignment, because each of those functions, your manufacturing, your engineering, your service, we're all on our own different internal timelines. And so you spend so much time just going, oh, missed that because we were working on this and all this was critical. So aligning those times and making sure that you're impacting them when you have to, I think that's the ideal stage.
And the field should be involved very early. Your point about working on products 3 years in advance of launch is because you're involved that early.
Exactly. And that's the evolution. How do we have a voice around serviceability at that stage? You have to have the design for serviceability mentality and build all that framework out. But I think the evolution towards perfection in that is just one of, it's time bending. It's being able to impact at the right point of time and realizing that that's sometimes 3 years in advance.
The nitty gritty of repair. Even who cares about repair?
I think when I first started in repair, I almost had a similar thought. It was one of my rotational repair. But the way it's evolved to today, who cares about repair? I think what has been so gratifying is seeing this right to repair movement.
Yeah. And so customers care about repair.
And then all of a sudden, I'd never thought in my job, I've testified in different states and actually internationally around right to repair bills. It's like, that wasn't in the job description for managing repair. And so the answer to that is more and more people are caring about repair as you go forward because you've just got so much goodness in this story. You've got the sustainability piece of it, right? Being able to keep products in the market. I mean, it's just painful. You look at how much we consume unnecessarily and how much we throw out unnecessarily. And so, any device that's you resurrect from that drawer, that kitchen room drawer, or wherever you're keeping them, and getting them out and working again. I mean, that's a noble act, right? That's a really valuable thing to do. So you've got to, and people care about this so much more because they're realizing this matters. This isn't just a hobby. It is really critical to our future to think about all this from a sustainability point of view. So, that's the external customer piece of it. Internally as a business, there's a lot of costs that can be lost from not repairing properly. There's a missed opportunity of building a relationship with your consumer and collecting some of that great feedback that you need to give to your design teams to be able to help them design better products. And, so for the business as well, there's a lot of financial reasons and branding reasons why repair should really matter. So it's just something if you focus on, you just find a lot of goodness comes out of it that you didn't even realize was there, but it is.
So for businesses that are wondering about if there's ROI in repair, sounds like you think there is.
Oh yeah, I mean 100%. I mean, the more that you're repairing units as opposed to replacing, for example, it's such a better solution to repair only the item that's broken. And that's not an entire device. Why are we dismantling, maybe tossing out or dismantling or taking apart all these different components and parts that work fine? I just need to put a display on, or I just need a battery, or whatever, even just the main board. And then I can, rework the main board and reuse that again as well. So I mean, consumer electronics, I don't think it comes as a shock to anyone to say there's not very big margins in this business, right? For the industry. So you really have to think responsibly about how you manage that. And that means your cost structure. And this is a great opportunity to very efficiently manage the business and do it in a way that is also building the customer experience. It's the only part in the operations world, I believe, where you've got both a cost savings and a revenue generation opportunity. And that's the beauty of it. That's where people really start to notice. It's like, no, not only am I just looking at being more operationally efficient, which translates to cost as it should, and anybody in operations role, you should be excited about that, you should be able to deliver it. But now you've got revenue opportunities because, again, you're building that relationship with your consumer. Maybe it's in the form of extended warranty that you can sell as part of a repair business. Maybe it's in the part of just a cover for a device that I might have dropped before or whatever. But how can I add value to the customer's experience in a post-sales environment? It's a good experience for the customer and it's good revenue for the company.
Well, it's certainly like loyalty, ideally, like translates into more top line revenue.
Exactly, right? That's such a critical piece of it. How do we retain our customers and build on that and generate that loyalty? And that's really giving them a good repair experience when they have a challenge. I think I think in the early days of like the repair and support world, it was like, oh, this is bad and shameful. I actually, even in my early days of repair, it was kind of like, hey, that's the repair group. Let's and keep it back there. But I think it's come more and more to the forefront because it's seen as, look, things happen. But I drop it, I do whatever. I'm gonna need repair at some point. And when I do, you just want to know that the company is there supporting it and doing it in a manner that shows they really care about the business. So honestly, I think some of the strongest loyalty opportunities are around those kind of repair and support experiences where you're just showing, hey, we can help you make this better. Maybe it's on us, maybe it's on you in terms of why it happened, but either way, we're going to create a great experience out of this.
So at Built Better, you emphasized that the strategy Google has taken has been towards a distributed repair center approach. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that strategy.
Yeah.
Anything you could share about why that strategy?
And again, I think a lot of that started when we thought about, fortunately, I've been involved with repair at Google since we started the consumer electronics business. And so it was really just a question at the beginning of just, well, all right, you look at who we are as a company, and we have such a famous mission statement of making information useful and accessible. And so you think about that in the context of repair, what does that mean to be useful and accessible? And it seemed like making repair accessible was just how do we connect with the customers close to where they are, right? As opposed to collecting all these devices and putting them on planes and boats to a factory in Asia, right? So it's horrible. Just that experience, and it didn't seem like the right approach, and it just couldn't further that cause of accessibility. And so we thought, to do that for us, we had to really build that on partnerships. We were just saying we didn't have stores, for example. We do now have some Google stores, but we don't have a chain and a network to enable that. So we had to really work with third-party partners to be able to be in communities where customers are and be able to provide those repair experiences there. It's a more sustainable solution. It's more effective for the customer. It's more immediate for the customer. You can, in the same day, you drop your phone, you can find the store nearby you where you can just walk in and get it repaired as you wait. So that just seemed like a much better experience and something that we wanted to optimize for customers as we were building it out and then thinking about how to scale it. I will say, when you go to that model, it just puts the burden on you have to design your products to be easy to repair because it's third parties. They repair a lot of other things. So it really comes down to, that's what I liked about it is once you're bought into that approach and that solution, now it puts all the pressure and all the responsibility internally to say, you've got to make this easy to repair, which is great because it just gives you that fuel to have that discussion with your design teams to be able to drive that type of improvement and repairability and say, we're doing this because we all agree this is the right way to build out our repair network, but we have to be able to enable it. So it becomes a really strong bargaining chip in a lot of ways of saying, yes, please keep making things easier because it really pays off in the field.
Yeah, it sounds like the strategy is a combination of like values alignment with the mission of the company.
Yes.
But there's also this piece around probably the volume that you operate on, where your customers are very distributed in the world. How would you advise, as you think about it from others out there in our network who might be listening, what have different volumes? Maybe there's like the scale from millions to thousands, or maybe even only hundreds. What are some of the factors they should consider about thinking about distributed like strategy, consolidating in several depots versus like shipping everything back to the original FATP site to repair it there, or just during replacement? What kind of things would you advise them to think through, or advice would you give for those kind of different scenarios?
I think I'd say start with the numbers and start with the data, and I think you will find this will be a much more cost-efficient way that the closer you are to the customer, and certainly as opposed to replacement, which is a costly and again a very wasteful way of structuring it. I think it's a fair point. How do you achieve scale? And repetition is such a key part of repair, and how do you enable that? I think you mentioned part of it. I think some of this is also maybe it's just these footholds you get when you're starting out is, can I at least have regional depots and local centers where I can send devices back and do that? I think even that is certainly much better than, again, the carbon footprint of sending them back to factories in Asia or elsewhere. So I think that can be your first foothold. But, everybody has to start somewhere. We certainly weren't the size we are today. And even back then, we were building these partnerships and recognizing the challenges of, they may see so many of this other brand phone and only one of ours in a much shorter period of time. But I would argue that still then it necessitates the partnership between support and the engineering teams to say, we got to make this work. You got to make this easy because we're competing with all these other products out there. Yeah. So yes, it's easier with scale, but I don't think that should be a non-starter.
Excluding.
Yeah.
So even at the order of tens of thousands or thousands, do you think
tens of thousands of repairs? I think that's reasonable. You can look through partners and the partnerships that we have as well. I mean, they're working with smaller brands than us, and they can do it. And I think so they bring a lot of skill and a lot of capabilities to the table. You just got to meet them halfway. How do you just make this as easy as you can for them? And that means not a lot of proprietary tools, right? Because they can't afford that investment. Yes, exactly. I think everybody has a story about just these proprietary screws and it's not until you have a quality issue.
Making every screw inside your product a different lane.
Right, exactly. And then the factory has a shortage of that screw. They can only buy it and they shut down the line for a week, right? So yeah, I mean, those are exactly the lessons we learn over time. How great to learn them as quickly as possible. Just standardize, simplify it for your partners. All these unique tools, just don't do that to make this a simple process.
Is a collaboration with a partner even beneficial to because I imagine they have lots of expertise in what they're doing and what's going to work for them.
Yeah.
So have you found the partner has actually given you suggestions of why don't you not do this thing that's annoying?
Oh yeah.
And then you're like, oh yeah, it kind of makes sense now.
It's great. We have really strong partnerships on our quarterly business reviews. With a mature partner relationship and a strong relationship, they become so much give and take. And I love it when a partner feels empowered to be that direct, to say, this is driving our technicians crazy, for example, or you can't do this. And you got to have that dialogue. If you don't have that honesty, you're just not going to get better. It's not a healthy relationship.
Do you think that anything, I could imagine a case where partners' feedback would actually drive a change that you'd be like, oh yeah, we should make that change. And actually that makes FATP easier.
Yeah.
Because if it's easier for repair, it's probably also easier for assembly.
Yes. We've had impacts where we've simplified the tools and the testing equipment that are in the factory based on what we've learned in the field as well. What I would also say, just to add for even if it's smaller companies, remember, one of the most powerful learning tools inside a company in terms of repairability is to just spend a couple hours, take your leadership team, product teams, etc., and bring in a bunch of devices and let's do a tear down together. And let's try to repair and replace the display. And that hands-on, I've done this in every repair role I've been in. When you sponsor those, they will pay off for years. You will hear from those leaders in meetings saying, yeah, just remember when I just struggled with that and with that part of the repair and how can we make that better? It is a very, very powerful tool if you really want to.
Empathy building.
It's huge. It's huge.
It doesn't work with the engineers because they've actually done it themselves.
But it's interesting when they see
someone else struggle. So you need the execs at the table unscrewing the screws and all the PDs around them watching them struggle.
Yeah.
And then you've got the perfect.
It's a really, really helpful tool, and it just drives a lot of awareness. It's the same experience as in contact centers, making sure that you have people either listening to or even taking calls.
Yeah.
Using the knowledge base. I've done that a lot too. That's terrifying, by the way. You're live with a customer and you're just kind of working through a database. But those are the experiences. The more you connect that, those are powerful. That is an incredibly powerful experience. So, whether it's feedback from field providers or feedback from ourselves trying to do repairs or taking calls, that's just a really powerful experience for people. Yeah.
It's a good one.
I guess the Japanese term is what again, in a product marketing role, it was you got to go visit Best Buy and see how your store.
I'd be curious, new hires on your team, you make them sit in a repair center.
Oh yeah. we encourage them to go out to like the different repair centers where we do that. We've got the whole team do tear downs together, and it's they're great bonding experiences, and they're just great learning experiences too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember one of the early times I designed parts, but it was the first time I was like in China seeing my stuff get assembled by someone else and just being like, oh man, I have to completely redesign it. It's like even just one trip, the amount of information you have about how to be a design engineer goes from like nearly zero to like, I don't know, 50%. That's very good empathy building. So we have a large community of folks who maybe their organizations haven't really like picked up the repair piece yet, but they feel like they're visionaries in that area. It's something they're passionate about. What are kind of some common internal objections that folks might face since you were here, from the beginning?
Yeah.
I'm sure there were some folks who were like, wait, why do we care about this? What are we doing? Is this like a good use of time, resources, etc.?
Yeah.
What are some of the common objections you think like others might hear, and any tactics you have for pushing through?
I think in any company, you're going to have to answer the question around costs.
Yeah, and like ROI.
You have to. Yeah, you have to be able to prove that there's an ROI there.
Okay.
Again, I believe strongly there is. And it doesn't matter what size of a company you're at. I think that story is there. You just have to find out how to tell it. And it will be a combination of cost savings, revenue opportunities, brand loyalty, right?
Some of those are softer. So how do you take soft ROI and make that believable at an executive level? Like it's something that we have had to try to figure out too.
First, I think there are a couple of things. You're right. They're softer. And so you have to have an internal culture built around, are we bought into how we're looking at this, right? If there is a brand loyalty metric that the company believes in and buys into and says, this 1 point of CSAT NPS equals this made up, and everybody buys into that, then speak that language.
Then you can
have it there. Even if you have that, you can't build your case on that alone. That's always got to be your icing on the cake. That's just the piece you say, oh, and also we have this. It's really for businesses, for product teams, they got to be able to show that the business can continue. And so you have to really build it to the bottom line. Reality is warranty costs, related sports, they're a very significant part of any business's P&L.
Yes.
You should not have a problem of being able to make your finance team your best friend and really understand how the money moves. I mean, honestly, in any new role, sport role, certainly leadership role, spend a day with your cost accountants, with the finance team, and understand that P&L inside and out, understand specifically your cost center and where everything is coming and going, and build your story around that. And the more time you spend on that, the more this will pay off for you, as opposed to brainstorming all these different ideas and these feel good things about aspects of it. And even the brand loyalty, it's there, but don't rely on it. That has to be complementary to doing the work of digging into your financial statements and being able to say, I know that repair can be a better financial experience for the customer, for the business, as well as a good customer experience. Let me show you where you can be saving money and applying it then towards making your product with more features, better longevity, whatever it is that you really want to drive to be able to keep the business continuing.
So for like someone thinking about this, it sounds like maybe your advice is for the hard ROI numbers where you can like point to specific numbers, you want that multiple to be above 1. And so essentially you're asking executives to not take a leap of faith that like they're for sure there's a payoff. It's more of just like the leap of faith is how big the payoff is. And they're taking a leap of faith on kind of some of the softer elements, which they still believe, but they don't, it's not 100x ROI, but like there's still something there, even if they're discounting it in their minds by half or whatnot. And you got to add all those pieces up. If
you lead with that, I think you lose the argument. But if
you lead with like this is the actual cost of like shipping them to China, like it costs us $10 to ship it to China. It costs us $70 for them to open, repair, whatnot. And then adding those up across like I guess count and etc.
Right. So. And then you're also building a relationship with your customer, which we all know contributes to our business in this manner. That's how you stage that argument.
Customer support calls, like the time on that, engineering time. We've found like some of the largest ROI contributors for almost any spend in consumer electronics is engineering time. So if you can tie it to a reduction in engineering time, you can often make the ROI for things taped out.
Exactly. And so in the repair world, a lot of that is cycle time as well. If we can say
Yes.
we can, through the design, we can pull this much more repair time out of it, that translates to
Like
savings
go from
for
10
our
minutes to 4 minutes or
Exactly.
whatnot. Got it. So if your sole mission, this is hypothetical,
All right.
if you were to step into a role where your sole mission was to extract as much information from the field to support like building some super future product that
Yeah,
delighted customers to no end, was super reliable and robust,
yeah,
like, and that was the only mission,
yeah.
what would you think about? Like how might your strategy evolve, or what would be some things you would do?
How to really, you're
Like use the field as the test
right.
case.
This idea of the voice of customer. How do you get as much information? How do you break that wall between we launch a product and what is it from our limited touch points, the product reviews, et cetera, and all these things. But how do you really collect a meaningful set of data and provide that back to them? I think that's where when you think about post sales, it's not just repair. It's not just call centers, right? It's these critical pieces. It's your field quality rates combined with your repair rates, and the touch points at those, as well as the contact center. So it's how are you collecting all that together? How are I think companies, if they can really leverage each of those parts, they're contributing to create a single voice of customer with a lot of different inputs. And I think the more you can consolidate that and organize it and make it accessible, make it useful for your design teams, that's really the key. Because I think a lot of challenges with support teams is it's very fragmented. Maybe you'll here's some updates from the call center, here's some updates from the repairability side of it, here's some quality updates. No, those three are kind of the really important pieces. Those three in particular, your field quality, your repairability, and your contact center. Bring that together.
Yeah.
Do the work of understanding trends and themes and what's a one-off as opposed to, no, this is something that's really important. Also recognizing that everything's a one-off in support. It's like everything is long tail, right? But how do you just make that long tail a little more comprehensible, or kind of, for people to understand and for design teams to be able to act on? So it's a lot of it is ultimately just an act of organizing. How do I collect all this feedback and organize it in a meaningful way that people can consume it and make the improvements that they need to do?
Yeah. So if the challenge is less on the collecting of the data and more in the organizing of the data, what is it, like a big data science team?
I think you have to have the systems in place, right, to be able to collect that really well. But I think that it's more an analyst team, right? It's really understanding what that data means. And I think that becomes, there's really the value of experience, of understanding. I've worked with some really good customer support professionals, and you just know it right away. They just could talk to the data. They could understand what it means, and they could pinpoint, oh, we have to fix this. And then you'd see that they get fixed and they get it right because they understood how to take that data and turn it into information.
Yeah.
So I think that's
what the engineering team is, information, not just data. Right? I mean, they appreciate that there's data there.
Yeah.
But they kind of want like the TLDR.
Yes, because they have their set of priorities and things they need to focus on. So how do you serve it up to them? That's been a lot of my experiences here, just learning the importance of that, and a company that values data collection so highly, but more importantly, turning it into meaningful information and seeing how that can be done really effectively. You start to realize how powerful that voice of customer, that field voice, if you're bringing that effectively, man, that becomes really powerful. And there's standing room only in the meetings that you have with engineering teams when you get that right.
Yeah. But I mean, that's a great aspiration for anybody wanting to be a visionary in the space.
Yeah.
Awesome. What do you think the future of electronics repair looks like? Like 5 years, 10 years?
I believe the movement around DIY will grow.
Yep.
People want more agency. They want more ability to repair their own things. And that's it. And from a company's point of view, we're always trying to figure out how do we simplify that process. It doesn't get much simpler than just saying you can do it yourself, because we made it that easy to do. So I'm really hoping that it's not just limited to consumer electronics, but across industries. It's just how are you able to get your customer base to do more repair? It was really powerful. I was in India and speaking with some legislators in India, and they talked about, we used to grow up and everybody repaired their own bicycle. It was just standard. It's like, my mother repaired all the appliances, and And a lot of that was lost, and they're sad about that. Was really the sentiment. And I think that's true for us as well. As we get into more of a disposable society, I think there's a point where people are now just don't want that. And so the more we enable people to do repair, it's you're building a relationship with the product as well. It's just you're connected to it because I fixed it now and now it can last longer. I think that's a cultural trend. I think that's also a smart business trend because again, there is this opportunity to build relationships with your customers and to build loyalty. And if you're not interested in loyalty of your and growing your customer base, then what are you doing? So if that's important, then repair is a great conduit towards really, continuing the conversation with your customer.
So in the world where electronic devices often batteries only last like 1,000 charge cycles. It's pretty common that's pretty much the standard. So 1,000 charge cycles is about 3 years.
Yeah.
And so if you're talking about a product that has lived a 3-year lifetime, let's say we're at that point, it's not a repair that's happening earlier than that. Maybe it's for battery. Maybe it's like the battery kind of is no longer holding enough charge to get through the day or whatever. Yeah. Are there individuals within an organization, maybe make this not about Google, but someone might think reasonably so, well, I want someone to buy the next phone.
Yeah.
After they've had it for 3 years, I designed it for 3 years.
Yeah.
If I let them repair that battery, I'm losing out on a sale of my 4th gen product 3 years from now. It's within the first year of life. How do you think about that particular objection about are you cannibalizing future sales of new product?
I think the challenge is if you're viewing it as zero sum, right? It's but the reality is as devices last longer, what you're really just doing is you're generating this opportunity to expand your customer base because maybe I won't hold that device for those 7 years or whatever.
Maybe pass it on
3 years in, I give this to
friend,
family, whomever. Maybe I donate, right? Because there's some really good nonprofit work being done around trying to get devices,
et cetera. Yep.
Underserved communities. Because you can't function without connectivity, and there's a lot. There's a lot of people. There's 36 million people in the U.S. that don't have access to a computer. So there are so many outlets for that device to have another second, third, fourth, fifth life. And guess what? You're just creating more loyalty, right? You're creating more...
a larger customer base.
Yes.
I use this Google hand-me-down. Now I'm going to buy my own Google.
Maybe it becomes aspirational, right? The next one I want is going to be the brand new one. And this one, then we'll move to the next one. So, I think it just is a limited approach to just think, oh, no, we have to keep selling more. No, it's that product is good and it can find a home. And there's a lot of homes that don't have it. Yeah. So how do we reach as broad a customer base as we can so that and continue to grow it? Which is also aligned with the mission of accessibility of the data. To reframe it. It is. That's really what you need to do is to recognize that it's an invitation to grow your customer base as opposed to there are always going to be customers that really want that next thing. That's great. But for a lot of folks, they're happy with what they have now. And when they're not, they can hand it down and then move to something else as well. So I think it's just a different perspective. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Awesome. Well, thank you. This was a great discussion. Very topics near and dear to my heart. Thank you so much. Yeah. Hopefully we kept that kosher.